Hello everybody, welcome back to Boys on Film. Today we're talking about Pamela, A Love Story, which is a documentary on Netflix, all to do with the actress and activist Pamela Anderson. And look who's here with his newly descaled face. That sounds grim, doesn't it? Probably not the right word.
Right, it's correct, it's descaled.
Minimalised. Loving the tash.
Three things. One, just going to make a statement because that's what people do these days. They just make statements. I'm post-bear. Second thing, as I said to you earlier, Phil, offline, I'm concerned that most gay men with beards only wash 1/3 of their face.
Yeah, not me.
Third thing, Adam Peaty stole my look.
There we go. Reinvention. You're like Madonna.
Me and Madonna never see us in the same room together.
Right, so we're talking about somebody else who probably has reinvented herself. Pamela Anderson. Are you a fan of hers before we get started on the review? Do you love her?
I love her.
Yeah.
I've loved her for a very long time. And so I'm trying to be impartial about this review. See.
No, I thought that as well because I thought, Sinead O'Connor, we recently reviewed her documentary and we gave it 5 stars. And I thought, right, okay, I'm going to try and separate them because I don't want that to affect, the actual film itself. Because obviously it's her life story and, we're pretty intrigued by that already anyway, aren't we, I think?
We are, and you know what? Just before we get into what happened, which I think is fairly well documented, I just want to say that any time that I've come across Pamela Anderson in interviews or talking candidly, she just has this warmth and charisma.
Yeah.
And she's just quite generous with her information and she shows a sense of vulnerability. And I think that's super rare, which makes people warm to her. I went into this going, I love Pamela Anderson. So seeing this made me a bit sad at times, really, because she's quite brilliant.
She's very open.
She's a rarity in Hollywood because I think she is just so this is the way it is and this is how I see the world.
Absolutely, and I'm the same. I've always admired her from afar in a certain way because I was never somebody that watched Baywatch necessarily. And I haven't seen Barbed Wire, the movie that she did yet. I know we might be considering reviewing that for a forthcoming review. You know that I'm vegan. I've been vegan for 7 years. And I've always admired and respected her campaigning work for animal rights. And more recently, over the last few years, I've just respected her even more. But I've always liked her, It's always been kind of, like I say, from afar, because I've never necessarily followed her career or anything.
The same. I think what's kind of amazing about her is, she got this reputation from the sex tapes. And in a way, she leaned into that to be able to drive a cause that she's passionate about, so pays her. So she was a bit like, all right, you can take the piss out of me if you want, but you have to pay some money to this charity if you want to do that. And I think there's something a bit like, you can prod fun at me, but I'm going to use it for my own benefit to change and do good. That's amazing, And I think what you get through these documentaries, again, she's quite unvarnished in her thoughts, not in a negative way. She'll just tell you about her dreadful childhood and she'll tell you about how things are really rough. And often what you get with celebritydom is they have these reinventions, like me, these reinvention tours where they kind of gloss over the past because they think it's going to damage their story reputation. And she never does that. She's just like, this is my story. Here's how I got here. Warts and all, and unvarnished. And I love that about her. And I think there should be more of that because, especially in a world today where everything's kind of like Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, everything's got a gloss to it and a presentation layer. She kind of cuts through all that bullshit, and that's why I love her.
Yeah, totally. There's one moment where the director, Ryan White, he's asking her about her diaries because she's reading a lot. She's narrating throughout this as well as actually appearing in the film. But he's asking her if it's too much for her to read out those, sections of her diary. And she's, really honest. She actually says, I don't know whether I can go back there again because it's really painful. And I don't want to revisit that feeling, I don't want to go through those feelings again. But she does do it. I mean, there are a lot of moments where she's brutally honest. I mean, you touched on the childhood. I didn't really necessarily know a lot about that. So again, like you, I was heartbroken at some of those details of her abuse that she suffered when she was a kid, being raped.
I mean, she grew up on Vancouver Island. She was there before Harry and Meghan, She was there first. She's the OG.
Yeah.
She's the Vancouver Island OG. And there's this bit where her mother's like, oh my God, you're going to the mainland. And she just sees the whole of the mainland, whether it's Canada or the United States, as the same. It's just like, it's over there. And so, yeah, she tells it as how it is. And it's her child, as you say, abuses a child, a deep longing to be loved. I mean, how many times? She's divorced 5 times, I think.
Oh my God, yeah, married so many times. It's almost like that, need for that fairy tale wedding, which I think she, she's looking at people in a really, I don't know, optimistic way, I guess. She's really genuinely kind, I think. That's the feeling that I get just from watching this. And I think people and situations just disappoint her continually. Yeah, it's like relentless.
I think she's a good old-fashioned romantic, Phil. I think she falls in love. She jumps in with both feet, which I respect. And things sometimes work and things sometimes don't, And she's also made that into kind of a bit of a joke, like, her and husbands. But I also think that drives some of the reason and rationale behind the sex tapes, because when she was with Tommy Lee, and sidebar, initially thought he was called Tommy Lee Jones, who's obviously a different person. When she was with Tommy Lee, all of those things where they were just constantly on their like these little video camera things filming and created all those home videos, which were for them really is a reflection of how tight they were as a couple. And the fact that all of those got stolen and then got edited and then got put out to the world on the cusp of basically the internet, because I mean, the reality is they thought, okay, these guys are going to churn out 1,000 DVD, like VHSs, and they'll do the rounds, only to find that they were on the forefront of the internet, and suddenly someone uploads it, and then anyone can watch it. Anyway, that must just be devastating, and to have no recourse or rights over that, because it was the first time it ever happened. There was nothing in history to go, we have something to refer it to. Is bonkers, and she lived through that. She is that person, It's just, I think it's testament to her that she seems to have got 2 well-rounded kids who are grown up, and she is still like, I'm fighting for what I think is important, regardless of all this stuff that's gone on.
Oh my God, such a great mother. But it's infuriating, isn't it, to remember those times back then. I mean, obviously even more infuriating for her and her family, but how attitudes have changed, thank God, for the positive more recently, because she was treated like an object. I mean, all those people that said, well, you pose topless and nude for Playboy, but, a sex tape is the same thing. But it's not, because she's had that stolen from her private property. It's her, something she had in her home, and somebody broke in and stole that. And it's not connected at all, because that's her personal life. That's different.
We're in a period of time there, Phil, where the idea of consent, she consented to do whatever she wanted to do with Playboy. It's her body. I'm like pro Pamela. I'm like, yeah, do whatever you like, babes. That's amazing. She did not consent to be burglarized, as an American would say.
Yeah.
And then have someone edit her home videos and then put it out. She did not consent to that. It's not the same thing. But this is, I hate that whole, it was an old generation, but literally it was the forefront of something happening, a litigious case that had no previous reference. And so I do really feel for her, because it's kind of really hard for her to fight that, because there's no precedent elsewhere, But for me, she's a hero.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, prior to that, obviously, when she got the job, a very lucrative job at Playboy, I love that, because I was applauding, because it's like she got the power back after being abused as a child, when she was, self-doubting and asking questions about, the situation she was in, and kind of blaming herself, like she said many women do. I love the fact that she got that control and that power back, and showing off that amazing body that she has. And she's such a beautiful woman as well. And also in this documentary, she wasn't wearing makeup for a lot of it, and she's naturally beautiful woman. But I think it's what's inside that really comes across, the real power that she has, and the control, and just a smart woman. I think she's just so smart for so many reasons, and I love that. It's almost like, obviously she's had a lot of problems, but to be honest, when I was watching this and going through the heartbreak of the childhood and the bad stuff that happened to her, I almost forgot about the sex tape era, and when that came up, I was like, wow, I'd completely forgotten about this. It was almost like it wasn't really that important part of the story for me. Obviously it is for her, but it wasn't the reason why I was watching the documentary. It wasn't the reason why I wanted to hear her side of the story. But obviously she was very honest about that, and also she was kind of singing Tommy's praises still to this day, and that's true love, I guess, isn't it?
But that's why I was going to touch on that, because I think it's almost a little bit like Rather to Have Loved and Lost, I think they both, in a way, realise that they are kindred spirits.
Yeah.
And their time together was golden, and, you know, they created 2 gorgeous children, and, you know, things didn't work out. But what you get there is, I think, with Pam, and this is just me projecting, but with Pamela looking for that same level of intensity again that she had with Tommy Lee, with all of these husbands that she's had since. And really, you know, with the crystal ball, he's the one, and vice versa. They're like kindred spirits. They've got something very magical. And so I think that's also tinged with sadness, because I think they both probably know that. But they are where they are in the universe. I just want to make one more comment, which was, I think Ryan White, the director, was really respectful.
Yeah.
Because given that, and I'm going to talk about the diaries specifically, given that she obviously pours her heart out into these kind of media, the written diaries, the videos, etc. Given something like that, so a form of media, the videos were stolen and someone benefited and capitalized on it, she kind of early on gives him the right to go through the diaries and basically do what he wants. She's kind of saying consenting. She's like, I don't want to do it, but if you want to do anything. And actually, he's really respectful, because he doesn't go in and go, right, I'm just going to find all this salacious stuff in all of this content.
Yeah, he doesn't manipulate her, does he?
He doesn't manipulate her at all. And I think, and I'm like, applause, because that's in some ways also about building trust again. You know, if I was her, I wouldn't trust any form. I'd be like, off, quite frankly.
Yeah, totally. It is her story, isn't it? And he's allowed her to tell her story.
Yeah, and so I'm like, I have a lot of respect for the director for doing that, because I think he could have gone down and it could have gone really gross. Maybe as a viewer you'd be like, oh, that's juicy, but he was very respectful, I thought, to Pamela, and so I've got a lot of time for that.
Oh my God, it was one thing after the other in her life, though. Obviously, she had the problems with the child in her upbringing. A lot of happiness along the way, too. I'm not just suggesting she's a total victim, because she's not at all. I mean, she's obviously got that control back. But, you know, the Pam and Tommy series that was on Hulu, did you see the 8-episode? I was going to say comedy drama, because
I know it's referenced in the doc.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I actually enjoyed it. I mean, Craig Gillespie directed, I think originally it was meant to be a different director, but Craig Gillespie, who I think is a great director, I love his, I think he did I, Tonya as well. He's got that kind of comedic edge. I liked it for that reason. But then when you think about, the problems that it's caused her, knowing that drama series was coming onto TV, it kind of makes me feel like I like it less now, because it's bittersweet in a way, because I know that it's obviously caused her a lot of grief. Yeah, of course. And I think that's the other thing, which was, who knows, I don't know how it worked out or played out eventually with Netflix, or was it Hulu, sorry, who did Hulu, that? Yeah, I don't know how it worked out. I think it was on Netflix though, here in the UK.
Yeah. So I can't really comment, but again, that's just another a bit of a punch for me, which is, you're doubling down on an action that was not okay, and we are 20 years on, and you're doing the same thing, really. Yeah. You're creating a piece of content that you do not have consent for, because it's salacious. Like, get a grip does not help the situation at all. Does not help Pamela, I don't think, to look at this kind of world of media and go, yeah, I totally trust these people. Do you know what I mean? I find it a bit disgusting.
And when you look at the footage in the documentary as well that's shown back then at the time in the 90s and the late 80s, when you see chat show hosts, predominantly male chat show hosts, just being really grubby and sleazy with their questions, and it was always the same questions, have you had your boobs done, that kind of thing, and treating her like an object. And even Ruby Wax, who I've always admired in the past, she, I suppose, went along with that too by asking her if she ever wants to be a serious actress. And she looks at the camera and kind of says, well, I am, but winks as well. And you just know that even back then she was just pissed off with that kind of questioning.
I'm pro Pamela. I think she's a
legend. Yeah, me too. And weirdly, it does affect my star rating, because I thought the documentary was fantastic. But like you said, it did make me feel sad. I wanted more of the positive stuff, the success, like obviously treading the boards on Broadway with Chicago.
For me, it ticked a lot of boxes, and it was Pam. So I'm star rating for me. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think it's a 4.
Yeah.
I would love to go higher, but I think I'm biased, so I'm gonna go 4.
Yeah, me too. Exactly the same reason. Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Stars, Pam.
We love her.
can't.
I would love to interview Pamela Anderson.
I think she'd be great to interview because I think she'd just put you at ease. I just get this vibe that you'd just be like you'd be chatting to a mate with coffee, going, "God, then what happened?"
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't come off as starry, you know, and that's why I just think she's a legend anyway. So
yeah, she seems very grounded. Yeah, 4 stars for me as well. So it's Pamela, a Love Story. It hits Netflix on the 31st of January. 4-star rating from us. Let us know what you think of it if you're going to watch it. Comment down below. And like we talked about, you know, the documentaries that we've reviewed in the past, particular one recently, which we loved, we gave a glowing 5, was for Sinead O'Connor, Nothing Compares. So check that out. It's on the screen somewhere floating around Sean's head now. And his new moustache.
They're not my thoughts. Whatever's going around my head is done in post-production. I just want to call it out.
Amazing. Thank you, Sean. Always good to see you. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more of this. Who wouldn't?
Bye.